Hi there everybody, it's Friday the 31st of July, the last day of July. It's in the morning and I had to go and have a quick shower because I just read the morning newspaper and about 12 pages are given over to it inside the newspaper to the National Assets Management Agency, the agency set up by the government, by the Fianna Fáil government here in Ireland, to buy the toxic assets from the various banks that we have. And the figures that are being bandied about, which are obviously from agencies within the government, are a lot worse than I first thought. And they're talking about spending 90 billion euros buying these assets. Now that's probably a conservative estimate, but even based on that, we don't have 90 billion euros. Our whole gross domestic product, our whole GDP is around 200 billion euros a year. So we have to borrow the bulk of that money, and to borrow that amount of money will cost us between 4 and 5% at least per annum. So not only do we have the capital sum, but we have to pay the interest on all this borrowing every year. And I believe this is the greatest con that's ever been worked on any democratic state. This could never happen in somewhere like France, could never happen in somewhere like Germany. This is called the National Asset Management Agency, this body. It really should be called the National Liability Management Agency, because these so-called assets that they are buying really are liabilities. They are buying property. They are buying property not only in Ireland, all over the world, that their buddies, the property developers, bought at the top of a market, a raging bubble market. You know, the more I think about this so-called National Asset Management Agency, the angrier I get and the more frustrated I am. You know, there's no transparency in this body. This body seems to be above the law. There's a whole set of special legal parameters that exist around this body. The High Court or the Supreme Court can't challenge a lot of its decisions. There's no representation, direct representation of the taxpayers on this body. The people who make up the leadership of this body in the main are either buddies of Brian Lenihan, who is the present Minister of Finance, or they headed up finance bodies within the state prior to the setting up of NAMA. So these were the officers of the day who led us into this debacle, abetted by now friends of Brian Lenihan's, personal friends of Brian Lenihan's. This is like being on the Titanic, and the Titanic hits the iceberg, and all of a sudden Captain Smith and his aide-de-camp, the first officer of the day, Light Toller, tell you over the loudhailers, don't worry everybody, we've just struck an iceberg. Don't worry everybody, we just struck the iceberg. Everything's going to be fine. Just do what we tell you to do. And we know what happened on that Titanic, don't we? Yes, all the rich people got off on the first 4 or 5 lifeboats. And everybody in steerage class went down with the ship, listening to these muggins. These people have got us into the biggest debacle that any society has ever been in. We have the sovereignty. The sovereignty through our constitution is imbued in the will of the people. It's not imbued in banks or buddy tents up in Galway. The situation is, there's so much to deal with this. It's just unbelievable. But I'll finish on one thing to give you an idea. These people must take us for idiots. Just listen to this. When they buy the toxic assets from the banks, this NAMA, this NAMA is going to pay the banks in government bonds. So these bonds will be over a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5-year bonds. Okay? And the bank will have to pay for these bonds the interbank rate, which today is 1.25%. But we have to borrow the money. The NAMA has to borrow the money through the state, has to borrow the money from, again, buddies of the banks, the big international banks. And we're paying because we are the most indebted nation in the world and we have the worst credit rating of any nation state in Europe. We have to pay the highest interest rate. So not only are we giving them capital amounts of money, we're giving them deferred interest. They're stealing the friggin' interest on us as well. We have to pay 4 or 5% for the money, but we're giving them the money at 1.25%. Where else would this happen in the world? It's like a joke. Anyway, I have to come back to you.